Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm your host, Amanda Lamb. About 100,000 babies are born in the U.S. every year thanks to in vitro fertilization, also known as IVF. But as the interest in IVF increases, so does the wait time for treatment. It can take up to 6 months just to get an initial consultation. WRAL Investigates reporter Sarah Krueger joins us to share what she learned about this process. Sarah, welcome to the program.
Good to be here.
So first off, let's talk about the reasons women choose IVF. I mean, the most common is trouble conceiving, but that's just one of the reasons. What did you learn about this?
Yeah, so trouble conceiving, recurrent losses, and also single parents. There's a single mom I met in Durham while working on this story. She has one older son, a teenager, and she decided at age 40 that she wanted a second child. She's not in a relationship, so she calls herself an intentional single mom. She went through IVF and welcomed a baby girl 9 months ago.
Oh, that's incredible. I know that one of the biggest shocks when people start to research this is the sticker shock, that it's so expensive. And I also read in your reporting that the expense cuts out about 85% of the people who want to do it, which is it's really devastating for families, for women, for couples that want to have children. What did you learn about the price?
So it really varies depending on insurance, although most insurance does not cover IVF. So what I found is it varies most based on where you go. So local clinics quoted me anywhere from $13,000 to $23,000. And talking with women who went through this, they say oftentimes the payment is expected up front. That makes it really difficult and really limiting as far as who can afford to pursue this.
Absolutely. Well, we will talk more about this after the break. Welcome back to the WRAL Daily Download. So I know you also talked to some doctors for this story. What is the thought about why more women are seeking IVF?
They think it has to do with couples waiting longer to have kids. So a big part of that is more women now are in the workforce, very career driven, and put off having children until later on in life. And we know that fertility tends to decline with age. And also with the sense of that time ticking, if there are issues, a quick fix is often the more attractive option. You know, if there's not too much time to try to figure out what's the root cause of the issue, then IVF might seem like the easier option.
Absolutely. And, you know, it's interesting because my mom, I think, was, you know, part of that first generation of women who worked and had children and kind of did it all. And we were all kind of sold a false bill of goods. You can have it all. You can do it all. But, you know, I think that we've learned through our experiences and our friends' experiences and family members that, you know, biologically, unfortunately, there's a window for us, right? And so putting off that decision till later, I think sometimes, you know, puts people in this position where they don't have a choice.
And makes it difficult.
Yeah, they have to seek something like IVF. So I know that, you know, we started this story by talking about the wait times to see fertility doctors. And as the interest in this increases, those wait times increase. What did you learn about that?
So I asked Duke and UNC, the two big ones, and Duke told me it could take up to 6 months to get a fertility appointment and get the process started. At UNC, it's less than that. They told me it's typically a few months wait to see a doctor. And keep in mind that then the IVF process in itself is a months-long thing. And all of that, you know, 6 months wait, it may not sound like very long to everyone, but if you are someone who is really wanting kids, that's an anxious time. And those waits can just feel like an eternity because oftentimes, you know, you've been trying to conceive on your own for a year typically at least, and then to hear that you have to wait to get help, it can just be really emotionally difficult.
Absolutely. And I know that the woman that you profiled for your story, she connected you with a doctor in New York who is surprisingly getting a lot of women from other states to come seek treatment with him. Tell me about why that is and what is his motivation for what he does.
Yeah, so I found a number of women locally in the Triangle are going to New York to a clinic called CNY Fertility to get IVF. And CNY has been around since 1997, founded by Dr. Robert Kiltz. And it's been written about in national publications because they somehow are able to keep the cost of IVF around $4,000 to $7,000. So that's much less than the other places. You'll remember I mentioned it's $13,000 to $23,000.
Yeah, it's a huge difference,
Definitely, astronomical. And they've built up a whole travel program. So they really cater to people coming not just out of state, but even coming internationally. And now they've expanded. They have locations in Colorado and Florida and their main one in New York. And so I talked to the founder of CNY, asked him, how he keeps his prices so low. Like, is this a different process? Are these different medications? He said, no, it's the same thing that you would get anywhere else. And really for him, it's just he feels like it's the right thing to do. He said he's still making money. They're still operating at a profit, and they are able to access a much wider population. He says they don't turn anyone away, and he feels like he's making families accessible to so many who would otherwise potentially be without.
And that's just amazing, right? Because obviously the motivation to have a child is a very strong one, and for most people, and for somebody that's willing to pay and to go through all this, I mean, they're really passionate about wanting a family. So that's amazing that he's able to do that. You talked briefly. Tell us about the story about the mom you profiled. So she was able to have a child.
She was, yes. So her first try of IVF in New York at CNY was successful, which was great. So now her daughter, Brielle, is 9 months old, and they live in Durham. So she spent in total a few days in New York for the egg retrieval, for the embryo transfer, then came back down to North Carolina, and that's where her daughter was born. And she said, even paying for flights and all the travel costs, she saved so much money. She initially had tried to go to a clinic here. That's what she wanted and what she thought was the logical thing. But once she heard the price tag, she started looking around on Google, and that's when she found CNY and said she just, had a great experience.
And was able to get in with them a lot quicker than she would have a local doctor, which I think is important.
Within about 2 months.
And I think it's also important to point out that it doesn't always work, right? So when people put this money out, they make this investment, they have to understand that it may not be just a one-time thing.
Right.
So,
and that makes the cost even, more difficult to swallow.
Absolutely. Well, what are your takeaways from this report?
So I hope that, women, parents-to-be who are listening, that they can find hope in the options that are out there. As someone who myself has gone through a tough time in having my son, I know it can feel really overwhelming when you want a child, you want to be a mom, and it's just not working out. So the right answer won't be the same for everyone, but whatever that is, I hope that they find it and realize that, there are a lot of options out there.
Absolutely. Sarah, thank you so much for sharing your reporting with us. Please take a minute and give us a 5-star rating in Apple Podcasts. Your rating and review will help other listeners find the show. We appreciate it. As always, thanks for listening to the WRAL Daily Download.